might know that I'm prepping for Reebok Record Breakers. It's in about a month. It's in exactly a month, actually. And I was fortunate enough today to get in a pair of the new Iron Rebel Outlaw wraps. And I want to take the opportunity to both talk about the wraps, talk about what different styles of wraps and what I prefer and what you might look at if you're trying to get into wraps yourself, and also how to wrap your knees, which is a very, very important topic if that's something that you're just beginning at, because the way you wrap your knees can make a massive difference in how much carryover you get out of the wraps. I know for myself, with a shitty wrap, I can actually squat less with the wraps than I can with sleeves. But with a good wrap, I can get as much as 75, maybe even pushing 100 pounds out of a really, really tight wrap. So it makes a difference, and I think a lot of people don't know how to do it properly, and I'm going to show you guys how I do it and what I recommend. So first, the most important thing, I have two wraps here. I have the new Outlaws. I also have the Elite FTS crates, which is what I've used in the past. I'm going to use crates to show y'all because I only got one pair of these. I want to keep them fresh. But the Elite FTS crates are a very similar wrap, actually. And I'll talk about the differences later on. But I find that if you're a raw lifter, the number one thing you want to look out for is wraps that give you a big rebound. If you're lifting equipment, you wear a squat suit, totally different story. But rebound is really king for raw squatters. And so I like wraps that tend to be a little bit less stretchy, pretty tight. Those are the wraps that are going to tend to give you more rebound. So crates, new Outlaws, a couple other ones that you can get from various brands. Most important thing when you're starting out is make sure that you pre-roll the wrap. Now, if you have a wrap roller, that's the best way to do it. It makes it very easy. But if you don't, you can roll the wraps using basically your foot and your hand. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. I'm going to put the side that has the little logo on it. Most wraps have some sort of logo. I'm going to put that on the ground. And that'll help me later when I go to tuck the wrap in. I'm going to start out. I'm going to put my foot right about maybe a couple feet into the wrap. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to pull using my foot to pin. I'm going to stretch. And then I'm going to just start rolling, just like I was doing a wrist roller. Really, really sucks, I'm telling you, especially if you've got wraps that give you good rebound. This is a fucking pain in the ass, and so I'm not actually going to show you. But ideally, you want to crank it all the way, as tight as you possibly can. The tighter you crank this now, the more rebound, the tighter the wraps are going to be, and the more rebound you're going to get out of them. So you go all the way, stretch as tight as you possibly can. This is why a wrap roller is really helpful. Get all the way down here. So just pretend I did that the whole length of the wrap. Again, I'm feeling kind of lazy. By the time I get to about here, this is like a max effort wrist roller. So that's why I'm not doing it. Roll it all the way up. Super, super tight. Then, once you got it like this, you can leave about this much loose. Pull it around and just tuck it under, and that'll keep it for when you're ready to use. So you can do this, you don't have to do it immediately before your set. See how I just kind of tuck that under right there? You don't have to do it immediately before your set. You can do it a little while in advance, and that way you're not fucking worn out. I'm worn out just from that shit. I'm out of shape. Not worn out when you go to squat. Alright, so we got our pre-rolled wraps. Next step. Choose which leg you're going to begin with. Doesn't really matter. You're going to start, untuck it. Some people prefer their feet down like this. Other people prefer to keep their feet elevated so it's 90 degrees. I don't find it makes much difference. What you do want to make sure is that you're squeezing your quad as hard as possible, right? Really pulling that knee down, and that you're pulling your feet back, just like this. It's really helpful if you can get a super buddy to push your foot back, because it's very, very difficult to hold that position while you're being wrapped or while you're wrapping yourself. So I'm going to put it up here so you can see. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to start under my knee. So if this is kind of the top of my knee, this is the bottom of my knee, I'm going to start at the bottom of the knee and put maybe, 2 or 3 inches, and I'm going to pull that over the top of my knee. And I'm going to pull this other side, so I've got a little X to start with already. And I'm going to wrap it under once. So that's my start. As I pull, I'm pulling this as tight as I can. It's already pre-rolled. I'm pulling it out in the opposite direction as I'm wrapping. That keeps it tighter, gives you the maximum stretch in the wrap. I'm going to go just around. I have about half overlap right here. It's really helpful when you have these stripes, you can tell. I want right at the bottom of the white stripe, and I'm going to go just below my kneecap, no further than that. You'll see people go halfway down their calf. It's not helping you at all. The only thing that helps is the part of the wrap that actually stretches. and that's the part directly over your kneecap. So right below the kneecap, just so it's secure. I'm going to bring it back under, and now I'm going to start to cross it, right? This gives me even more surface area, so I'm going to go below the kneecap in a diagonal, around, and then back in another diagonal. So I've got a little X right under my kneecap. Depending on how long your knee wraps are, you may be able to do an X behind your knee as well. But you can notice I'm trying to get as much material as I possibly can under the back of this knee so that all that material is stretching. And I'm only going to go just over the top of my kneecap. All I want to do is make sure it's secure. Now I'm not stretching this very hard because it's painful when you get that full stretch. But the more revolutions you get, the better. No matter what though, you don't want to go halfway up your quad, don't want to go all the way down your calf. All that is just wasted wrap. It's not doing anything for you. When you're done, when you only have a little bit left, you tuck it under. Like so. Now, this isn't very tight, so this doesn't hurt, and I can just hang out with it. But if you get a good wrap, it's very tight, you can't leave it on for very long. A couple of things to keep in mind. Actually, it is starting to hurt, so I'm going to take it off. A couple of things to keep in mind. If you're a raw lifter, when you finish that wrap, you're probably best off if you can end up tucking the knee wrap behind your kneecap. As in this side, right? Not this top. The reason for that is raw lifters tend to push their knees forward more than equipped lifters, right? Generally, a raw lifter is going to have some forward knee displacement, not have a super wide stance. And the further your knees are forward, the harder it makes to hit depth. And so, if you have all this shit in front of your knee, right? And I'm exaggerating here. Look, all that's coming out in front of the knee makes my knee look much further forward than it actually is. And so it's going to make the judges think, oh, you're not really as deep as you actually are. So if you tuck it behind the knee instead, it doesn't look quite as bad. So that's one tip. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're dealing with really long, really stretchy knee wraps, you might get so much material behind the knee that then you can't hit depth. And that's one reason why I like these tighter knee wraps that don't stretch quite as much. There's other more aggressive, stretchy, and tight wraps out there, but for me, they stretch so much that I get so much material behind my knee, I can't hit depth. I go all the way down and I kind of stop because there's nowhere else I can go. It's like, almost like if I had a tennis ball behind my knee, right? I can't get deep enough to really finish that squat. So it's actually pretty simple, right? When you think about it, you're trying to get the maximum stretch over the kneecap. You're trying not to go too far up your quad or too far down your calf. And you're trying to pull that wrap as tight as possible the whole time. And if you do those things, you're going to get great rebound. Now, I do want to talk real quick about these new Iron Rebel wraps because I got them for free and they're pretty cool. So, if you've used the Elite FTS crates before, you know they're pretty thin actually, and you don't get a whole lot of stretch out of them, you get massive rebound. These new Outlaws are actually very similar, except they're just a little bit thicker. I'll hold them up. I don't know if y'all can see right here, but if you look in the side, these Outlaws below, they're just a little bit thicker than the crates, but they have almost identical stretch. And what that means is you get a little bit extra rebound because you have that extra thickness, but for me, I still don't have trouble hitting depth. So I really like these. I do want to tell y'all, they are extraordinarily painful. So if you're just starting out, you probably don't want to start out with these. They'll make your feet go numb about 30 seconds, and you just want to get them off as quick as possible. But if you're trying to lift as much weight as you possibly can, you're probably used to pain, and you're just going to have to suck it up at some point. If you are just starting out with wraps, I recommend that you get something that's not so intense. And so a couple different options you have. The Iron Rebel Rhino wraps are a good starter wrap, as are the Elite FTS normals. Those you can pretty much, you don't have to wrap them super tight. You'll get a little bit of rebound out of them, but not a whole lot. They're not super intense. They're just a good starter wrap so you can kind of get used to the movement. SBD training wraps, another good one to start with. I think that's all that I've used. But once you're ready to move up, kind of to the next level, recommend somewhere in between. You can go for the Elite FTS Heavies. Those are great training wrap that I actually use in my off season when I want to get a little knee wrap action in, but I don't want to go super ham like with the crates or with the Outlaws. And then if you really want to go wild and you're a raw squatter, I recommend these two. I I'm not a huge fan of the Elite FTS Super Heavies. They are so difficult to stretch, and they tend to be more of a casting wrap. So if you're an equipped squatter or you're trying to do pause work, those are something to look at, but otherwise I would tend to avoid them myself. So I'm going to have a couple other videos on wraps that are going to be coming up that I'll talk about how your technique might be a little bit different if you're using wraps versus squatting in sleeves, and also about how to program in wraps, which can be a little bit tricky, especially at first because you have so much overload. But that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Try to keep it a little bit shorter, and again, I always appreciate feedback, so please let me know. You want to see more, you want to see less. I've got a lot of topics on the docket, so stay tuned.